Hey everyone, Megan McCauley here from LMN. Welcome to our last session of the LMN virtual classroom. Today we're going to be focusing on time 102, which is going to be a main focus on scheduling and invoicing. So if you've been with us at the beginning of the week, we made our way through budgeting and the CRM tool, estimating, and yesterday we went through time tracking. Now we're actually going to jump into how to schedule your jobs and then how to bill for the work that has been completed. So there are a couple of different things that you're going to need today. An active LMN account with access to scheduling and invoicing. And it's super helpful if you have one job set up in LMN time already so that we can practice scheduling it and can practice generating invoices. Now, if you do have questions as we're working through the webinar today, you can use the side panel question box there and answer or enter in any questions that you have, and I'll leave some time at the end of the webinar to actually cover those. This session will also be recorded today, so you'll get an email after the webinar. If you missed anything as we're working through it here, I know it's a lot of information, you can always go back and watch the recording to get up to speed. So we'll jump in and we'll get started. And what we're going to do this morning is we're going to start with scheduling. So with LMN scheduling, it's really going to help you with managing all of your jobs. So the LMN schedule tool is a tool that's used to efficiently plan and schedule your jobs to ensure better work and optimization in the field. So it's really going to help you with a couple of different things. One being planning your workload ahead of time. So the nice thing with LMN scheduling is once you get into it, once you learn the basics of it, you can actually learn how to plan all of your work for the season all at once. So if you've already won some jobs for the season and you're just getting into scheduling, you can actually set those up at this point and schedule your jobs for the rest of the year and actually plan out the rest of your season. You can always manipulate your jobs once you have them scheduled. For example, if there's a rain day or if a job gets delayed, we can always shift those around on the calendar so that you're always managing your jobs accordingly. It's also going to help you eliminate paper schedules. I would say this is one of the biggest benefits. You'll no longer have to use paper schedules. You can actually keep them all digital. So your crews, when they punch into the mobile app, they can see what's been scheduled for them, either for today's schedule or anything that's coming up in the future. So it really lets them actually plan ahead of time as well. They can see what jobs they have coming down the pipeline, and they can prep for those accordingly. Another thing I will mention here is that a lot of companies, they tend to take the LMN scheduling tool and actually put it up on a TV in their shop so that when the crews walk in the morning, they can look up at the big TV, the calendar or the whiteboard, and they can chat about where they're going for the day, see what they're going to need to load in their trucks. Just a really great way to make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody knows where they're going. You can also schedule hundreds of jobs at once. So again, once you become a master with LMN scheduling, I do recommend using the bulk scheduling feature. That's going to allow you to bulk schedule your job. So meaning you can schedule multiple jobs at once. If you had a ton of different mowing jobs for the entire season, you could take all of those jobs at once and add them to the calendar. So saving you tons and tons of time with that capability. And you'll also be able to optimize your routes for your crews in the field for efficiency. So if you haven't done this already by using job groups and you want to use the scheduling tool to actually optimize your routes, you can do that right within the whiteboard of the schedule. And we'll take a look at that in just a minute. So before we jump into the scheduling tool, there are some best practices that I recommend following. So the best practice for scheduling your jobs is once you've imported your estimate into LMN time to create your job for your crews to punch into, you'll want to schedule it right then and there. This is going to help you so you don't forget about the job that you've imported and that you know you've scheduled it and it's ready to go. And like I said, you can always change your schedule by moving it around on the calendar with a simple drag and drop feature. So you don't need to worry if things change. It's okay, you can always change it. You'll also want to view your schedule summary in detail. So once you do schedule your job, just always double check that it's been set up correctly, that you've scheduled the right dates, the right number of visits, and you can always print this information as well. And you can edit and delete job schedules as needed. So again, you can do this on an individual job level, and I'll show you exactly how all of this works once we get into the scheduling tool. Now, there is one report that you can print if you do still want to give your crews that paper copy as a backup to see their scheduled routes. You definitely can. It's a nice little feature if you do want to print that piece of paper. I know we're trying to eliminate it, but if you want to print that piece of paper to go along with your digital schedule, it's always helpful when you're first training your crews on how to use Element Time and the scheduling tool. Just good to have that backup there just for the first little while so that just in case they don't know how to use the app, they still have their paper backup. And as they start learning how to use the app, you can slowly start taking away the paper. That's how a couple of different companies have implemented Element. You kind of keep both of those practices going at once and then eliminate the paper. All right, so we'll jump into our Element Time account. And today we're going to click on the schedule button on the left-hand side. So I'm going to start with the whiteboard. We're going to go through scheduling a standard and a service job. I'm going to use the jobs that I had imported the other day during our session so that you can see exactly what that looks like. So I'm going to click on the whiteboard here. And this is going to show me a daily view of my schedule and my crews. So what I've scheduled for each individual crew that I've set up in Element Time. Now, if you need to set up your schedule crews, if you haven't done that yet, you can do that by clicking on the gear icon in the top right-hand corner, and under Schedule, you'll see something called Schedule Crews. So important to set those up. If you need some step-by-step help, jump into the Academy online, just under Schedule there, and you can watch the course on Schedule Crews. So again, the whiteboard is going to give me a daily view of all of the crews and the work that I have scheduled. So you'll see here that there's a whiteboard action button, and there's a couple of different options here for you. So as I mentioned, let's work through actually scheduling a job together. So I'm going to click on Add Work to Schedule, and it's going to give me two options. One, I can schedule a one-time job. That would be for any installation or design build type work. Or I can schedule a recurring job, which is going to be for my maintenance, my service jobs, and any irrigation or fertilization. You'll want to use the recurring job option. So it's important to know the difference between the two. There are some different features within each. Every time you schedule a recurring job, so a maintenance type job, your crews will actually be able to update a schedule status from the mobile app. So if you're wanting your crews to mark these jobs as complete as they're moving along throughout the day, then you'll want to use the recurring job option here. So I'm going to go ahead, let's go through scheduling a service job together first. I'm going to click on recurring job, and then this screen is going to pop up. This is where you can filter by any job groups you've created, as well as you can actually search for any jobs that you've entered into the Element Time system. So for this example, let's work through the estimate that I imported yesterday. I'm just going to filter back to any group, which is this one right here. So I'm going to select my job, and I'm going to click Next. Now it's going to show you a schedule description. So this is what you're going to see on your whiteboard as the job name or on your calendar. This is how you'll be able to represent this job. You can also enter in a work order number if you do use work orders. And then down below, you'll be able to select schedule templates. Now, schedule templates are really, really helpful. I've already set up a couple here. If you do want to set up schedule templates, you can do that on the left-hand menu under schedule. You'll see a schedule template option there. What schedule templates do is allows you to add multiple services to a schedule template. So it really allows you to customize different packages for your customers. So you can see here in my list, I've created a couple of different options. I have a basic package, I have an essentials package, a platinum package, and I've actually outlined what services are within each. So then when I go to schedule work that falls into those packages, I can simply select them. So I'll click on my essentials package here, and it's going to show my services down below. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select all of the services that I want to schedule. And then I can simply choose the corresponding task that goes to that service. So in this case, my spring cleanup is going to go to my spring cleanup task, my fall cleanup to my fall cleanup task, and so on and so forth. And in this case, for this job, I actually don't have bed maintenance and pruning. You can still move forward and you can still schedule those. It's just letting me know here that I haven't set up those services for this specific job. If you do want to schedule those, you can simply select a task that corresponds to it, or you can deselect it here, and then you don't have to schedule it at all. So I'm going to move forward with these 3 services here, and I'm going to click next. Now this screen is showing me, because I've already set up a schedule template with services created on it, along with different time intervals and scheduled dates, that's what's showing on this screen here. So again, I highly recommend setting up those schedule templates. It makes your scheduling a lot faster and easier. But if you don't have any, that's okay too. You can just choose the custom option on the previous screen. So taking a look here, it's showing me the services I've selected to schedule. It's also showing me, based on my schedule template, the types of schedules that I've chosen, as well as the dates that I've already set up on my schedule template. So if my visits don't match what I've outlined on my service, so for example, my mowing service, I believe I had 26 visits outlined, and it's showing me here 28. And it's showing me a little caution sign. So it's letting me know that it's not in line with what I put on my job, on my estimate when I imported that job. So you can go ahead and you can click on the edit button. And this is how you can change those dates if needed. So in this case, my schedule type I've chosen as weekly. That's because this is a mowing maintenance service. So just easier for me to schedule it weekly. And even if it's set up as bi-weekly, monthly, choosing this weekly option is going to allow you to choose your schedule intervals down below. So you can enter in a start date and an end date, and that's going to be for the whole contract for this customer service that we're actually scheduling. So in this case, in Canada, we only mow the lawn between April and November. And then we go into our winter months. So what this is saying here is that from April 1st to November 30th, I'm going to schedule my maintenance or my mowing service every week. And my time factor is a percentage that you can alter if needed. So I could increase my time factor. It's going to increase my scheduled time. And that could be for weather. That could be if the grass is growing during a certain month and you need to add some extra time because it's going to take you longer to mow that grass. You can play with the time factor, or you can just leave it as 100%, and it's going to schedule your job based on the man hours that you've set up on this job. So you'll want to choose a weekday up above to schedule that job. I'm going to choose Fridays. And then on the right-hand side, you can choose a schedule crew. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to choose maintenance B. It's choosing a manager for me. You can alter that at this point. And then down below, it's showing me the service I'm about to schedule, how many visits, and how many man hours it's going to take me. So in this case, I had estimated 26 visits on my proposal, but what the system is telling me is based on the dates that I've chosen, so April 1st to November 30th, that means I'm actually going to be scheduling 28 visits based on that date range. So it's really important. This is actually letting you know that maybe I'm actually not bidding enough visits on my job based on the total man hours and the time frame that I'm going to be servicing this customer. So important to keep an eye on that. You can change that. If you need to change the 26 visits, you can go back into your job and update that there. Or if you want to change the visits here, you would just need to alter your date. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to make it April 15th to November 30th, and I'll refresh. Let's back it up a little bit. Sometimes you just have to play with the date here to make sure that the visits line up. And click the refresh button. All right, in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and schedule my visits, and I'm going to click save down below. So you can do the same thing with your spring cleanup. For this one, I actually have no visits on my job, so I'm going to click edit here, and we're going to need to add in some estimated man hours. Now, this is because I didn't have this service set up on my job, so I'm going to go like this, and I'm just going to say it's going to be a total of 2 hours on my one visit. And then you can go ahead and click save down below. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to schedule this mowing job. And I'm going to choose my crew for my other two. And in this case, it's not liking my spring cleanup. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to deselect this. And I'm going to move it forward. And I'm just going to schedule these two services. We'll assign the crew. We'll go ahead and click finish. And we'll click yes. Now this is letting me know I'm about to schedule 30 new visits to my calendar and to my whiteboard so that my crews can punch in to these scheduled visits. So it's really great because I'm actually able to schedule all of my mowing services and my fall cleanups for the entire season versus having to add them manually to a schedule on a daily basis. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click dismiss. And then now when you filter by your crew, for example, maintenance A, there's my maintenance mowing. It's going to be a total of 54 minutes a mow. So if you ever needed to change the crew for a job that you've scheduled, you can simply drag and drop it to a new crew, making it really easy to manage and organize your schedule on a daily basis. And that's what this whiteboard screen is going to do here for you. Now you can also click on the whiteboard action button, and this is where you can optimize your routes. So if you click on optimize routes, it'll pull up your list of jobs based on the crew that you choose up above here. So let's stick with maintenance A, and it's going to pull my start point and my end point, which will be the address that you have in your LMN time account. So for this example, that's my shop, and I'm going to click optimize route. and it'll work its magic using Google Maps, and it'll actually optimize the jobs that I have here in this list for this particular crew. So that when your crews punch in through the mobile app, they'll look at their scheduled jobs, and then they can actually follow the specific order that you've set up. So it guarantees that they go in the most efficient order throughout the day. So saving you lots of time, saving you drive time, and some of those added expenses, and hopefully going to cut down on any of that wasted time for each crew. So once it's done loading, it's ordered my jobs in the most efficient order, and we can click Save down below. I'm going to click on Show Map here quickly. It's good to click on this so you can see the order that the system has set up for you. So you can see here all of your different addresses. Just make sure that they're correct and that it's in the most efficient order that makes sense to you. So the nice thing is we work with Google Maps, so it does take into account all of that traffic data. If there's an accident or construction, it will actually route around that. So we'll jump back into LMN time, and I'll click Save Changes in the bottom right corner, and we'll click Yes. So what that's done there is it's actually optimized the route for today, as well as all of my future routes for that particular crew. All right. So that's how you would schedule a service job, as well as optimize that route. If you need to edit your schedule or print the crew daily report, you can do that here. Again, that'll give you a list or a report for each crew. I'll show you what that looks like. And you can choose today's schedule or the schedule even up to the next 7 days. So again, you can give them a paper copy if needed as a backup to go with their digital copy. So let's just choose today, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's a really nice report letting them know how many total man hours for each job and each task they should be working on. It'll show them any crew notes or task notes that you've set up for those specific tasks, as well as if you do send this in an email or you upload it as a file to the LMN time job, then they can click to view a street map as well. So just a good little report there to make sure they're following their jobs in the right order. So that about covers the whiteboard. Now I'm going to click on the calendar right underneath whiteboard on the left-hand side. So the calendar is a great way to see all of the jobs that you've scheduled for all of your crews. It gives you a little bit more filtering capability. Up above, you can choose by your different work calendars that you've set up, which would be based on division. You can also choose the crews that you want to see on the calendar, as well as any of the managers that are managing certain types of work. So you can see a monthly view, a weekly view, or a daily view. Again, it'll all be color coded, and you can choose to see the jobs based on crew color, or you can change that to even calendar color. And you can customize all of these colors within your work calendars, which would be under the gear icon in the top right-hand corner, and work calendars lives right under there. So if you're looking to set up and customize those, again, jump into the Academy online. They'll give you a walkthrough of how to set those up and how to use them for your scheduling tool here. So on the calendar view, you can also schedule jobs from here. So to do that, let's go through scheduling a standard job now. So I'm going to click on Calendar Actions and click Add Work to Schedule. Now in this case, because we're scheduling a standard job or an install job, I'm going to click on the one-time job option. And we'll go ahead, we'll choose our job. I'm just going to search for mine here. And we'll click Next in the bottom right corner. And this will look a little bit different than scheduling a service job. We're not picking our services and our tasks. In this case, we're literally just grabbing our tasks that we want to schedule that are on our LMN time job. Now, with installation type jobs, sometimes if you have subcontractors working on the job site, maybe you want to schedule those subs based on what they're working on. Maybe my sub was working on planting, so I only want to schedule my driveway at this point. You definitely can do that. You can select one task at a time, or you can actually select them all at the same time. So again, depending on how your work schedule is going to go, you can choose to schedule the whole job at once, or you can break it out into pieces. You'd be able to come back in here and choose, say, your planting task to schedule it at a later date. So we'll choose our tasks, and I'm going to choose a calendar to assign this to. So in this case, my installation work calendar, and then I can choose a manager to actually organize and manage the schedule. And I'll go ahead and click next down below. So this screen also looks a little bit different than scheduling a service job. Here you can choose a start date by clicking on the calendar icon. And then you can also choose what days of the week this crew is going to work. So based on what you choose here, that's how the system is going to schedule this job. So if your crews work on Saturday, you might want to select the Saturday option here. And you can also choose to skip holidays. So you have the option to set up holidays in the system so that when you go to schedule jobs, if you schedule a job on a holiday, the system will give you a red flag letting you know that you actually don't work on holidays. If you want to skip those holiday notifications, you can check off this box here, and then you can continue to schedule those jobs on those holidays. Down below, you'll see your estimated man hours for all of those tasks we selected on the previous screen. So for my driveway, for my planting, for my lighting, it's totaling 120 man hours. Now, if you need to add a schedule buffer percentage, what that's going to do is that's going to increase your scheduled time here. If you want to factor in any weather or any type of mistakes, really any type of unbillable time that you want to tack onto this schedule, you can add that as a percentage in the schedule buffer. Now, just be careful with that one. If you've already included all of your unbillable time on your estimate, and they're already included in these estimated man hours, you can leave this schedule buffer as 0. And down below, you'll see your scheduled man hours, the total amount of hours we're going to schedule. So on the right-hand side, you can go ahead and choose the productive hours in the day. Again, you can tack on some driving prep time, any additional unproductive hours in the day. You can then choose a planned crew, so who's going to handle this work. Choose your crew size, and then you can round your job hours to the nearest minute, hour, half day, full day. So for example, if I go to schedule my 120 hours and it only takes me to say, half day on a Friday, or maybe it takes me to around, 11 a.m. If I choose the half day option here, it's going to round that to the 12 p.m. time frame. So rounding it to half a day so that you can schedule in another job for the afternoon. But again, if you don't want to use the rounding factor, you don't have to. You can just select none. And then down below, it's going to let you know how many days you're scheduling this work for and how many hours per day. And we can go ahead and click finish. And we'll add this to our schedule by clicking yes. And then if I scroll down here, I can see my Miller residence install has been scheduled for me. Now, one common question that we do usually get is, okay, I've scheduled my job. What happens if there's a delay on the job site? Maybe it's raining, or maybe we're waiting for a delivery so we can't continue working. You can simply take, specifically for an install job, you could take one of those days. So let's take the 19th, for example, and simply drag it and drop it to the next day. What this is going to do is it's going to shift the rest of your schedule forward when I click yes. So you can see here, we're now skipping the 19th because we have a rain day or whatever it may be, and it's now shifted my install schedule for the next 2 days. So pushing out this job an extra day just because of those discrepancies. The same thing goes for a service job. So all of my green jobs that you see on my calendar, those are my service jobs. Works a little bit differently for service jobs. It will only take that one visit and move it to the next day or the previous day or however you need to adjust your schedule. So it won't shift all of your visits for the whole contract. It'll just take that one visit and you can manipulate it however you need to. So again, that's how you would handle rain days for your service jobs. And you can always click on any of these jobs to make edits to it once you have scheduled it, or you can see all of the scheduled details here. Once your crews punch in and mark a service job as complete from the mobile app, you'll actually be able to see that on your calendar. So when the crews do that, it'll automatically mark this service as complete. I'm just going to click on it here so you can see what this looks like on the calendar itself. So again, when they mark it off from the mobile app, they'll see a little check mark, and then that's going to let the office know that that service visit was complete. Now, let's say you actually couldn't make a visit or your crews got to site and maybe the grass wasn't growing, so they didn't need to cut it. Maybe it was super hot. The office administrator could come into the calendar view here. And if I just click on this again, they can actually mark that visit as skipped. So this will help you with keeping track of what jobs were actually completed, what was skipped, and it will help you with billing. Now, if you needed to write any daily instructions, these are important. These are a little bit different than task notes. These will show up just for this specific visit. So when your crew punches into this scheduled visit, these daily instructions will pop up only for this visit. Where task notes on the job itself, they pop up every single time your crew punches into that task. So just a little bit different there between daily instructions on your schedule. They only show up for this one visit when your crews punch in, where task notes show up every time your crew punches into that task. So up above here, if you click on job tasks, you can see what you've scheduled, how many hours. You can edit the schedule by clicking on edit today and using this drop-down menu. If you need to move a visit, delete a visit, change the crew or duration. And then if you click on edit schedule, this is going to let you edit the entire schedule for all of the visits that you've scheduled on your calendar. So lots of different options there. Once you do schedule a job, you can always come in here and change it if need be. All right, that was the quick kind of overview of scheduling. Hopefully that made sense to everybody. Next up, we're going to take a look at invoicing. So I'm going to jump back here. And we'll dive right into invoicing. So invoicing with LMN, there's a couple of different great features here, especially if you are an LMN Pro user. This is a great way to automate all of your invoicing. So your services, any materials that have been used on site, any time and material work, this is really going to automate your invoicing and billing process. As your crews are punching into the mobile app and they mark off their services as complete, let you know how many materials they used, LMN will automatically trigger an invoice based on them marking those services as complete. Now, it's not going to automatically send an invoice to your customer. It's just going to trigger an invoice on the admin's desktop in LMN time so that they can go ahead and generate the invoice. Now, those features with the mobile app and marking the service as complete, that works for LMN Pro users, and it will instantly generate invoices from your timesheets to create contracts. There's lots of different invoicing types. So depending on how your company bills their customers, whether it's just monthly payments, if you're billing by the visit or by the service, if you're billing for materials based on quantity, or if you're billing by the hour, so time and material type work. LMN really gives you the capability, if you do a mix of these invoicing types, you can bill for those as well, or one or the other. And last but not least, there's an approval and exporting process. So we actually integrate with QuickBooks. We recommend using the element invoicing, and then from there, you can approve your invoices based on the automation from the timesheet, and then import your element invoices into QuickBooks. So then your accounting is still happening on the QuickBooks side, and you can always generate your job costing reports and do your actual accounting in your QuickBooks. So a few best practices before we jump into invoicing. You'll want to import your estimates with your contract payments already set up. So that's a really good point. It makes the process so much easier. If you attended yesterday's webinar, I showed you how to import your estimates into LMN Time to create those jobs. And we had the contract payments already set up on our estimates upon import. Now, you can use LMN Time without the estimating feature. It just means you have to manually create your LMN Time jobs, which is a bit of a longer process, and you'd have to manually set up all of your contract payments in LMN Time itself. So best practice, import those estimates with your contract payments already set up. If you're a basic user and you're using invoicing, you will have to add additional invoices for your hourly or your per visit work. As I mentioned before, pro users get that automation from the mobile timesheet with the foreman marking their services as complete. Where basic users will have to pull a report through LMN Time based on what the foreman has entered in on the timesheet, and then they'll have to manually create invoices individually for those payments, for those additional services. So just an FYI there, that's a new feature with the customer portal release. Basic users didn't have access to invoicing at all, but now they can invoice on an individual job level. And for those pro users, you'll want to generate invoices in bulk, and you can do that ahead of time. So again, once you've set up your contracts and your payments, you can actually go into the invoice generate button, and you could take all of your billing that needs to be done, say for the 31st, generate all of those invoices on the 1st, so you can send them to your customers ahead of time, so you know that you'll get paid on the 31st or by the 31st. And we'll go through this in just a minute. I'll show you how to do that. All right, so we'll jump back into LMN Time. And this time, I'm going to jump into jobs on the left-hand side, and we'll click on job list. And again, I'm going to stick with those two jobs that I had imported yesterday. So here's my first one here. We'll take a look at maintenance, and then we'll take a look at how to invoice the standard job. So I'll click on my job, and I'm going to go down to invoicing, invoice activation. Again, because I imported my service estimate, it's already activated the invoicing for me. So I can see that information with my contract start date and end date on this screen. If I click on invoice schedule right below that, here's all of the monthly payments that I had set up on my service estimate. So at this point, if you're a basic user or even an LMN Pro user and you want to invoice for each payment kind of one by one, you can come into this screen, take a look at your payments. Say I want to bill for April 30th. I can simply click on the invoice button on the right-hand side. It'll ask you to make sure you want to generate an invoice for that payment. We'll click yes. And just like that, we've generated an invoice. So really, really simple. At this point, you'll want to review your invoice, make sure that that monthly payment is correct. You can always alter this information down below here. You can customize it if need be, and just type in your text here. Or if you need to edit any of the rates or quantities or whatever it may be, it's super simple. Again, just click on any of the fields. Up above here, we have our invoice date, so April 30th. Down below, there's an invoice due date. So if you are using the new customer portal, this invoice due date is going to be what triggers the customer when that invoice is actually due. So you can customize this here if need be. If you want to send your invoices a month in advance and then give them a due date a month later, this is definitely how you do that. Just click on the calendar button and you can choose the date here. I believe it's automatically going to choose a month out for you just based on the default settings within Element Time. Down below, you'll see your invoice number. And if you have an accounting invoicing number, you have a field to enter that in here as well. So down below, you'll see an invoice action button. This is how you'll actually go through the approval process when you are generating your invoices. So you can actually set it to review. This is a great feature if you have multiple people in accounting that are reviewing these invoices. Once you put it in review, you actually can't change any of these fields. It's letting you know that it's in review, or it's letting the company know, and you can see the status has changed in the top right-hand corner, and you can see who made the last edits to that invoice. So this is a great process to work through. Once it's been reviewed, you'll click on the action button again down below, and you can click Set to Approved. And we've now just approved this invoice. It's ready to be sent to the customer through the customer portal, and we can also import that invoice into QuickBooks. So again, you can use your invoice action button. You now have multiple options down below here. So you can click on Publish to Portal to send it to the customer portal. They get an email notification letting them know that you've actually posted an invoice there with the dollar amount. So once we click Publish, it's been sent to the customer portal. Once your customer logs in, they'll be able to see the invoice there and they can go ahead and pay it. Now at this point, you'll also want to send this invoice to QuickBooks if you are a QuickBooks user. So you'll want to mark this invoice as Export to QuickBooks by clicking on this button. And up above here, you can see that it's been queued to the QuickBooks Sync tool. Whether it's QuickBooks Desktop or online, this puts it into that integration sync tool. So then when you run the sync tool, you can push it into QuickBooks. And it's also showing you that this has been published to the customer portal. You can see the two statuses in the top right-hand corner. Down below, you can see who the invoice was approved by as well. And that's how you would run through the invoicing approval process, getting it into the customer portal, and then getting it into the QuickBooks Sync tool. Once your customer does make payments to this invoice through the customer portal, if you're using that, there's a payments field down below here, and it will show you if they've paid the total amount, if they paid a partial amount. You can keep track of this on the invoice level. And there's also a payments tab that'll show you in just a minute where you can keep track of that as well. So I'm going to click Close here. And then when we go back to our invoice schedule screen, we can see that our first payment has been invoiced because there's now an invoice number there. Now, if you need to view this invoice again, or if you need to make changes to it, you can click on the binocular icon here. You can set it back into pending from approved, and then that's how you can make your changes to the invoice. If you're a basic user, you'd go through the same process every month and click to invoice each individual payment. Now, before we go into how we can do that a little faster with bulk invoicing, I'm going to show you how to invoice a standard or an install job. So let's take a look at that. On the left-hand side, I'm going to go back to job list. And now I'm going to search for my install job, the Miller install, and we'll click on that. So again, I'm going to click on invoice schedule. And again, because I had imported my standard estimate into LMN time, my payments are already set up for me. The contract total is at the top of the screen, and then it's broken down my milestones based on what I had on my estimate. So making this really easy. This looks a little bit different. You'll notice that there isn't a date here like there was for service invoicing. That's because install jobs, you might not have a specific date on when you want to bill. So this gives you the opportunity when you do import your job into LMN time, come into this screen, and then when you're ready to generate the invoice, you can click on the ready button and you can actually choose a date and click set. And that's going to set a date for you to generate that invoice. Now, you can also simply click on the invoice button, just like we invoiced our service invoice. So we'll go ahead, I'll click on that. It's going to ask me, do I want to generate an invoice for this payment? And I'm going to click yes. Looks the exact same as a service invoice. So again, just review the information, make sure it's correct. Choose your invoice due date up above, and then you can see down below what we're actually going to be billing for. So this is just the first deposit payment, and then down below you can go through the same process and you can set it to approved. Again, the status changes in the top right-hand corner, and then we can go ahead and we can export this to QuickBooks. Now, in this case, I don't have the customer portal turned on for the Miller residents. So you have to turn on the customer portal in the CRM section of LMN. If you're looking how to set that up, you can go into the Academy online, take a look at the new videos there for the CRM portal. It's free to every user subscription type, so I definitely recommend using it. It allows your customers to see when their property has been serviced, as well as make online payments. So in this case, because I don't have the customer portal turned on for this customer, I'm not seeing the option to publish this invoice to the customer portal. So if you don't see that option either, that means you don't have the portal turned on for this customer that you're generating the invoice for. So in this case, I'm just going to click on Export to QuickBooks, and that's going to queue it to go to my QuickBooks Sync tool. And just like that, we've generated an invoice for this payment, and we can click Close. And then you can see the invoice number has been generated. And if you need to edit that invoice, again, click on the binocular icon, make the invoice pending, and then you can make the changes and reapprove it. If you ever needed to add an additional invoice on the fly, you can do that as well. You just click the scheduled invoice button. That's going to add another milestone payment for you. Just note here that it's always going to pull your total contracted amount. So you'll need to make sure that all of your payments still add up to that total contract amount. Down on the left-hand side, under invoice schedule, you can see the invoices that you have generated as well as their status. You can manually add an invoice here as well. And then there's a payments button right underneath there. Once your customer makes payments to that invoice through the portal, you can see those payments here. If you needed to make a manual payment, maybe your customer was paying by check or by cash, this is the screen. You could do that as well. You can add a manual payment by clicking on the Add Payment button in the top right-hand corner. Now, really quickly, that's how you would invoice jobs, standard and service, on an individual job level. There is an easier and faster way to do that. If you are an LMN Pro user, you're going to see this invoicing button on the left-hand side of your menu here. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click on Generate. So this is where, again, because your foremen are marking off services as complete and entering in the materials and quantities used on site, Again, if you're an LMN Pro user, that's automatically going to trigger an invoice, and those invoices are going to show up on this generate screen. So you can filter by date up above here. I'm just going to filter this out a little bit, and then I'm going to click update. And it's going to show me all of the invoices that I need to generate as the office admin to send to the customer. So this is how I would go through and I would approve those. This is also how I could generate multiple invoices for different customers all at once. So doing that bulk type invoicing. If I click on a job down below here, it's going to show me the payments that are coming up for those specific dates that I filtered for up above here. You can click on each customer to take a look at those, make sure they're correct. And if you do want to invoice ahead of time, again, this is the way to do that as well. So you'll just make sure that all of these check boxes are checked off or they're selected for the customers that you do want to invoice for. There's a toggle all button on the right-hand side, so you can use that as well. That will select or deselect those customers for you. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to click the Invoice Run button in the top right-hand corner. That's going to generate all of the invoices for all of the payments for the customers you've selected down below. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click on that. I'll click OK. And then that's just created an invoice run for me. So I can see that here, it's generated 7 invoices. So when I click on this invoice run, I can see all of those invoices for those payments that we were just taking a look at. So really, really easy way to generate invoices all at once so that it's saving you tons and tons of time. You don't have to go through individually to actually generate those invoices. And this ensures you'll get paid on time if you send them to your customer ahead of time. At this point, you could simply click on the invoice, go through the same approval process, or on this screen, you can actually select the invoices that you want to approve or use the select all button up above, click update invoices, and then you can go through the approval process this way. Change the status to approved, then publish it to the portal and export it to QuickBooks. So again, making your life a little easier, saving you some time with generating invoices in bulk. And that about covers the demo of invoicing. So at this point, we could go over any questions. So I see a couple here in the queue. There we go. So here's one question from Sue. Can the crew make those changes to schedule on the mobile app? The changes that the crew can make are actually just updating the scheduled visit. So they can't move any of the jobs around like you can on the calendar view or the whiteboard view. That's strictly for the administrator using the desktop or the laptop version of LMN Time. That's not to say if your crew is on a tablet and you give them administrative permission because you want them to be able to manage their own schedule, then you can definitely do that. Then they would see the same view that you have with the whiteboard or the calendar. Again, if you give them the admin user permission, then they can manage that themselves. If they update the scheduled visit status, how that works is when they punch out of the mobile app, the scheduled service comes up, they mark it off as complete, and that's how you would see it on the calendar. And then just in addition to Sue's question, where do you adjust for any add-on to install jobs? So for add-ons to install jobs, maybe if you have like a change order or something that comes in, you would just need to add a new task to that job so then your crews can punch in to that additional add-on. And you would have to schedule that additional task to the schedule. And we also have a question here from Vito. We're new to LMN. and are just getting started with LMN time. We've begun with manual scheduling, and my question is, can I retroactively add work we've already completed to the schedule and billing? So what you would need to do is you would need to set up your jobs with your contracted start and end dates, and then you should be able to go ahead and schedule those. And what my recommendation is, once you do schedule those retroactively, just mark them as complete if they were completed. Just change the schedule status back in the schedule. I'll just jump in there for a minute. When you click on the actual job, just change the status to either complete or to skipped if it was skipped. Just make sure you keep track of what's already been completed. So when your crews go to punch in to say today's timesheet, you scheduled a job for them today, when they mark that as complete, it marks today's scheduled visit as complete. So if you don't go into those older jobs, but you still want to add them to your schedule, if you don't mark those as complete, then it'll pull up whatever scheduled job that hasn't been marked as complete for your crews to mark as complete. I hope that makes sense. Just make sure when you do retroactively add your jobs, you go in and change the status so the right one they punch into, say on today's date, pops up for them to mark as complete. All right. Any other questions? I think that answers them all for the time being. We'll jump into just a little bit of a recap here. So today we went through scheduling service and installation jobs. We took a look at the calendar and the whiteboard, how you can manage those on a daily basis, as well as see all of your scheduled jobs on a calendar view so that you can keep organized and move those jobs around if any changes come up to any of your schedules. We also learned how to generate customer invoices for accurate billing. So I showed you how to do that on an individual job level. And then if you're an LMN Pro user, I showed you how to do the bulk invoicing feature, which would save you tons and tons of time. And last but not least, we reviewed the invoicing approval process. So we published that invoice to the customer portal, and then I showed you how to actually export it to QuickBooks so that you can then run it through the QuickBooks Sync tool. And don't forget, the LMN Academy Online is a great way to learn any of the information that we went over today. You'll want to jump into the scheduling learning plan, and there's step-by-step instructions on how to set up your schedule, how to use it, and it's going to cover a lot of the things that we covered today as well. To access the LMN Academy Online, you can find that button in your LMN account on the left-hand side, and you can log right in right through there. And don't forget, we have tons and tons of forms within our forms library. It's going to help you with different procedures within your company, help you get set up for success so that everybody is following your same operations and really getting everybody moving efficiently but professionally. And we also have our Facebook and LinkedIn user groups. So again, this is a great way to talk to other companies that are using LMN, get your questions answered, and really connect with those other companies to see how they're using LMN successfully. And last but not least, we will be running these Academy training sessions, the virtual Academy classroom, next week and the following week. So if you want to tune in again, we're going to be running another webinar session on Monday for budgeting. It'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can register by going to golmn.com/training. If you need some one-on-one support, you have a dedicated account rep. You could jump on chat, reach out to them, ask our support team who your account rep is, and they'll certainly help you with setting up your account. We also have LMN virtual workshops. Now, these are great workshops for business practices. So if you're looking for different ideas on how to run your business, eliminate waste. Lots of fun examples there. Those are taught by some of our friends, the Linemans at the Green Executive. So based on their landscaping experience, they're going to help you out along the way to plan for your business. And we also have LMN free webinars. So these are going to be tips from landscaping industry experts. This past week, our LMN CEO, Mark Bradley, was doing a 4-webinar series on estimating. So really deep diving how to create different types of estimates, whether it's tenders or snow estimates. You can really learn some best practices from some experts within the industry. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. I really hope you enjoyed the session and you learned something new. And if you need another recap, feel free to join us next week. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care and have a good weekend.